I would agree with you. And you wrote a piece, which is how we found you on burnout. And was it a study that you did, or was just a piece? I'm only familiar with the piece, but did you? I think you did a study.
I've done a lot of stuff. So like some of it is like my own experience, and I've written narratives on like what being a psychiatrist during COVID has been like. And I think I'm pretty open about how I've felt and where that came from, in part because I've already processed it. So I'm a big believer in not telling your story if you're not ready. We don't always like let people do that because they had some mass event and then someone goes and finds them with a camera and then they get stuck telling their story over and over and over. But if you have the ability to choose, you should choose to do it as you're comfortable and to what extent you're comfortable. And like I've processed being burnt out for like a year and a half, so I'm totally fine talking about my own experiences and hopefully helping other people understand themselves a bit from that. And I think I'm well aware my patients can read it. They don't always, but I'm well aware that they can, and I'm okay with that. It hasn't been a problem. They mostly like it. I do some research on like how to better connect healthcare workers to care. So like, if there's a big gap between need and actually accessing services, sort of like I talked about with college kids. So trying to figure out what that's about and how to make that easier. And also have done some studies on like how licensing questions influence our ability to seek care. So like all the things like for medical licensing, they ask like very illegal questions about your mental health history, or they have in the past. And so people have a lot of fear that they'll like take their license if they get help. And so that's a big barrier, and trying to understand like, has that improved, which it has, but it's still not perfect. And I think, I've done a lot of stuff like that. And I think that contributes to burnout just as much as the systems factors, right? So like work hours, your management, your supervisor, all that stuff. And so I think in America, we think we're supposed to be tired from work. Like, one of the symptoms of burnout is like emotional exhaustion, but I feel like for most people, it looks like physical exhaustion. And so we're just like, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, that's a problem. Like, this is the place that we work. And when you're in medicine, you are tired all the time. And that's just how it is. So it just feels like you can't possibly have something wrong. And the only time it becomes wrong is there's another symptom of burnout that's like reduced sense of personal efficacy, which is just like someone else told you you're not doing as much, or you're not doing as much. And so productivity becomes an issue. And so then it's affecting your work, and you're like, oh no, like I was working really hard and then I was tired, but now I can't do work anymore. And then it's a problem. So we don't tend to like deal with stuff until it's really like interfering in these ways that we don't talk enough about. Like, I think college kids, and I think most people in their work, can go pretty far, like still doing their work with no problems for a really long time and then still be pretty struggling. Like college kids are sort of like, they did school their whole life. They're just doing school. Like school will become a problem and then they're probably sicker, but it is not the first thing to go. Just like work is not the first thing to go. I would say probably social life is like, an easy place to see changes for people before like the things that matter in a society that, like values achievement above all things, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's a very interesting perspective. You're right. Like you would just probably see someone like they used to hang out with just completely drop off the radar if they're still going to school. And then maybe you go over to their house and it's a mess, but they're at the library all the time. So like that's one of the things that I've noticed when I'm in the past when I was down, right? Like I would stop taking care of the things that like my spaces, my room, maybe my home would be really, really messy. And this would just compound on me feeling like shit. I'm like, oh, dude, I need to clean. I feel better, but I can't. And then I'd stop going to the gym. And then eventually, like, it kind of keeps going until, like, I might be lying in bed and be like, okay, well, I got to do something because, like, this is untenable here. I need to, first step, clean my room. Then I've kind of built myself, you build yourself back up. But, I definitely could have seen at some point, and a lot of this happened in college too, at some of those points in my life, or probably talking to someone before I was in my bed just watching Netflix on my computer and like not doing anything. But it's such a slow and subtle shift and over a long period of time that allows one to get in that position that would be hard to catch. I feel like it was for me. I never was able to cut it until I was like in my bed watching Netflix.
Some of it is this like emotional awareness thing, right? Like if when you were a kid, you learned that when you stopped doing things or you didn't socialize or you weren't picking up your room or whatever, that was a warning sign. You'd be more aware it was a warning sign. Instead, it's just a thing I started doing. I just happen to be in sweatpants all the time. I don't know how I got in sweatpants all the time. I like sweatpants. They're comfortable, right? Like you just kind of like justify whatever because it's easy. Like, oh, I just put on sweatpants. I like them. But there's usually can be, not always, there's something behind it. And so like, you know, I always tell people to pay like attention when they have started to become more aware of themselves in this way. Like, what are the things that you do? So for me, when I'm burnt out, I want to throw my computer and never respond to an email or a phone call. Like it's aggressively the first thing to go. Like I do not want people to write me. Like I don't want to be asked to do more because that's what email is for me, asking me to do more things. And so the very first thing for me to go is like, I am so angry at email and it's like not a normal level of anger. And I'm aware that that's actually a burnout sign for me now. And then I'll like try to put limits on how often I'm on my computer and boundaries on how often I'm responding and where try to be more organized around it or take breaks, whatever. But I think these things are things that we blow past until we're falling asleep after work every day or something, which was what I did because we just were like, well, email's annoying. Like, I don't like email. There's too much of it, right? But really, like, you can be annoyed by it and not want to, like, throw your phone. So it's a very different reaction. And I think that I've become more aware of these, like, more, I guess, not super subtle, but was subtle for me, sign of things are not okay. And I think that's important for people to, like, start taking note of or, like, write down, even if it's helpful for you because you forget.
So wait, you would work and then go home and go to bed? Mm-hmm. Oh, there was no like revenge scrolling or anything?
Sometimes I would be up like scrolling angrily depending, but a lot of times it was like I couldn't fight. Like I had so much. I mean, I'll tell you, I actually think it's like when you have a lot of people telling you emotional stuff, you sort of like absorb it like a sponge and then the sponge is like, help me. And the sponge is like, go to sleep so you don't have to feel it. Right. Yeah. And so that's sort of what happened to me is like, I think I was just like, taking in too much, but I didn't know what to do with it. And I just fell asleep after work every day. And then I'd wake up and it'd be like 9 p.m. And I'd be like, now my sleep is screwed up. And so that would like make a cycle of like, then it's worse the next day because I slept until 9 and then I had to wake up and I was up till 3 because like who can go to bed right away, you know? So it's like really messes you up. But yeah, I'm a sleeper when I'm really like just overwhelmed. And like my therapist always says like, is it avoidant or restorative when she asks me about sleep? And I'm like, stop being so smart. I think it's a very good question. For the most part, I'm doing both, but a lot of things are avoidant.
That's so I wish I avoided via sleep. I'm an escapist. I don't even know if this is a real term. I made this up. I like to escape reality. This is what I go into television or it's generally television, movies. When my sister passed away, I thought I was totally fine. I was like, my parents are crying. I'm okay. I'm sad, but like, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. And I let my boss know. And then I couldn't get out of bed and I just was watching television. And then I stayed there for 3 days. And then I was like, oh, fuck. Okay. I guess I'm not like I wish I could just let it all out, but I guess that's not who I am. Like I don't want to think about it. I just want to escape into another dimension of sci-fi or whatever show I can find. And I just don't think about it. So like, I just end up, that's how I escape my problems. That's how I generally like cope with grief or if I'm feeling down or blue, like I just want to watch TV and just distract myself that's how I avoid escape. But I do know that's definitely a telltale sign. Like if I'm just lounging around watching copious amounts of television, something's up.
I have 2 speeds. One's like 100 and I'm doing like everything possible, and the other's like zero, and I'm asleep or on my couch watching TV for like 9 hours. And it's not like there's no in between for me. I'm trying to work on the in between, but for like, I cope by working, which a lot of people in this country do too. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I had a lot going on, but maybe if I could get something done, I'd feel better. Or I don't have to feel feelings if I'm working. So the 100 has its purpose, but it definitely leads to the zero a lot of the time because I didn't give myself any sort of like restorative time, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, I'll trade you the escapism for the, because I don't ever see. If you want to make a trade, I don't think I generally like end up working to escape things. Like maybe I do, and I just don't realize it. But I feel like that would be pretty useful. I mean, I don't know. I don't.
It's kind of useful, but
it's
it can be
useful.
hard.
It is kind of useful. Like if something really bad, I just throw myself into work, make a ton of money, and then I don't know. Then just feel empty and sad. You got to deal with this shit for sure.
Yeah,
but
for sure. I mean, I feel like for me, it's like I just like turn my productivity on, and I don't realize it's because I'm avoiding stuff. But over the pandemic, that was very clear that I was like, how much stuff can I do to help people write things, whatever? And I was writing like 4 times the amount of things that I usually do. And I was like, my friends were like, are you sleeping? Like, what is going on? Like, what's with your output? And I was like, I mean, there's a lot to say. And they were like, yes, but like, you didn't have to write 4 things to tell us. Like, maybe just take a break or something. And I was like starting to realize that I like hyped it up when I was trying to just like process it myself and I don't know, whatever else.
I think that, but yourself, like, the fact that you were able to identify that, I mean, being a psychiatrist and being trained in that definitely helps. But like that is, do you feel? This is kind of a strange question. I'm
prepared.
I'm trying to figure out a good way to ask it.
Is there a good way?
No, there's not. I'm just gonna fucking fire away. Are you disappointed in yourself? Like, damn it, I'm a psychiatrist. Like, why? Because I feel that's instantly where I would go if I was feeling depressed. Like, I know this. Like, why is this affecting me? Like, I've studied this. Like, this is ridiculous. Is that kind of how you feel with that? Okay.
Yes. I mean, it makes no sense, right? Because we should have the same percentages of all things that everyone else does in the population. We're not like somehow special. I think that we maybe can identify some things earlier, but I actually think like I run around giving talks on burnout and my therapist had to tell me I was burnt out. So that was embarrassing. Right? Like my first reaction was like, I'm embarrassed. And she was like, you shouldn't be embarrassed. Like you're not paying attention to yourself. You're paying attention to everybody else. But I was like, yeah, but like, I can tell you everything. Like I literally can tell you everything about this. Like this is really bad. And I think I just had to give myself some grace on it and say like, yeah, but I'm not like using it as a lens on myself. Like sometimes I notice some things because I talk about it, but I think it's easy to just like, again, dismiss things in yourself and kind of focus on other people when there is like a lot to focus on in other people. But yeah, I'm always mad. Like I can't like as much as I know that I'm human and I need to be human, like something like that really pisses me off. Like I shouldn't, like, I'm like, come on, like you just gave a lecture on that yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, and I think I've had to work through that a bit, but I would say I'm not like perfect with not being angry about that. Like it just feels embarrassing.
I mean, I'm not a psychic, but I can relate because I'll experience these moments of just, I'm writing all the time. I'm very in tune with myself. And then sometimes I'll slip back into being sad or being off and maybe I stay there. Maybe I stop going to the gym for a few months. And then I'm just like, why? Well, I know this, like, why did I do this? Like now I've lost it. I've lost the rhythm and I have to fight to get it back. And, I get embarrassed. And so I just figured if I was you, I felt like I'd feel that way. And that's why I had to ask. But
I'm honest about my imperfections as a human, but I think that doesn't mean they don't frustrate me. Right. Like I appreciate them. I'm aware of them. I know they make sense, but it doesn't mean I don't have the same reaction, which is like, are you serious?
Yep. We are all perfectly imperfect,
for
and
sure.